Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Daniel Stutvoiner about creating resilience throughout your entire organization. Daniel Stutvoiner, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and welcome from Zurich, Switzerland. Such a pleasure to have a chance to talk with you. It's morning here in Utah, evening in Zurich. I always love these international conversations, and it's been a lot of fun chatting with you just in the pre-interview, getting to know you a little bit, and a little bit more about your background and your personal context. Today we're going to be focusing on creating resilience throughout your entire organization, particularly focusing on frontline employees, but really how it goes up and down the hierarchy and how important that is, particularly in times of crisis, times of, for example, a global pandemic that we happen to be in the middle of, and we're seeing spikes around the world. So I think it's very, very important. As we get started, I just wanted to share Daniel's bio with everyone. Daniel is Chief Customer Officer and co-founder of Beekeeper, a secure mobile-first operational communications platform for frontline teams. By providing real-time unified communications, Beekeeper keeps everyone at the company aligned across shifts, departments, locations, and languages. Daniel is passionate about helping businesses operate more efficiently. He has a background in applied mathematics and more than 8 years of experience in sales and customer success. That's awesome background. It sounds like you guys are doing some really great work. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about Beekeeper and your platform and how you're helping frontline teams, and also maybe a little bit about how you got to where you're at, moving from background and degrees in applied mathematics, towards what you're currently doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan, for the intro. And at Beekeeper, we are a mobile-first platform that actually helps organization digitally enable their frontline. And I feel the frontline has become a very important topic this year, especially during COVID, when we started speaking about the essential workers. And many people actually don't have this in mind, but 80% of the world workforce is actually working in the front line. So when we talk about human capital, often we focus a lot on the desktop workers, and we think of industries like financial sector or tech sector, technology, and so on. But actually, if we think during COVID, those industries that really had to continue operating, like food processors, grocery stores, anything that is essential, even like some retailers like pharmacies, the postal service. These are industries where 80% of the human capital is in the front line. And what does it mean? It means that in many cases, they don't have a corporate email address. So communicating with them is very difficult, especially if they cannot be all together in the same place. Now with social distances, we see an area that is changing radically. So what we do at Beekeeper is actually help this organization go through the digital journey and provide a digital identity to the front line so they can work more efficiently. And of course, communication is part of that because teams need to collaborate, but it's really about making their life easier, their jobs, giving them access to the information they need so they can work efficiently and being able to collaborate with their teammates. So that's what we do at Beekeeper. We've been doing that for almost 10 years. We are headquartered in Zurich, where I'm based, but we have offices in the US, in San Francisco, and we have a global presence. We have more than we're present in more than 150 countries. So it's very exciting to be talking about this topic of resilience in the workplace, especially now with COVID, as many things have changed.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that background to the company. And if you don't mind, I know you aren't inclined to spend a lot of time talking about yourself, but just what's your personal path, say in 2 minutes or less, of going from applied mathematics into executive leadership within an organization?
Totally. So I studied math because I think it's one of the most pure sciences. And I always been passionate about solving problems and solving challenges. That's why I decided to do it. And I think when you study math, as many other natural sciences, you can apply it to anything in life. And I became very passionate about, solving the efficiency issues that organizations have when it comes to working together as a team and making sure that everyone has access to the resources they need to elevate their organizations. And when we think that 80% of the people, it's the majority of your people, is such a big asset that you have there, and that could become your competitive advantage, is the people you have and how you leverage them. So I became passionate about that topic, and I'm one of the co-founders of the company. We started working together 10 years ago when we realized, wow, how come no one is really taking care of the front line? So we started developing technology for the front line, and now we are globally active.
Wonderful. And my wife, who is a math professor, would appreciate your love of applied mathematics. So she'll probably enjoy listening to this episode because of that background. Wonderful. And I love it. I love seeing interdisciplinarity. I love seeing people connect disparate fields to drive success. And I completely agree. I think the sciences have a lot to offer to the world of business. And we probably need to spend a little bit more time figuring out how to better leverage some of those elements and people who have diverse types of training. But anyways, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's open it up to resilience a little bit more now. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. Currently, we're in late October the day we're recording this, and we're seeing spikes around the world. We're seeing spikes in the U.S. In Utah, there's spikes. We're at hospital capacity already. I know you were saying in the pre-interview how much things are spiking in Switzerland and in Zurich. I think that's on top of kind of broad social unrest, political unrest in many parts of the world. It's a tough time. So resilience is probably as important as it's ever been, that we can approach things in a positive, productive way while not burying the challenges and difficulties that we're having. What have you been able to do, both within your team, but also through your platform and reaching out to frontline workers, to help with this resilience issue and help organizations respond to the challenges that we're facing, for example, with the pandemic?
Mm-hmm. Totally. And when the pandemic started, it was a big disruption for everyone. And I think resilience is also very important to build it, especially during uncertain times. And what we supported our customers to and make sure that companies could achieve is having a direct line of communication with all their employees to be able that they can share guidance on how to navigate through that. And what most of the employees are looking is certainty, and they need to have a clear message. What we saw is, and these are stories that we heard from many of the companies working with us, but some of the companies in food production, they had to shut down, or they thought they had to shut down because of the number of cases that they had in the plants. And then they had to inform the employees, okay, you don't need to come to work tomorrow. And then suddenly there is a national decision that we need to continue operating because everyone wants to eat meat or whatever it is, and then the workers do need to come to work. And imagine how you do that when you have thousands of employees that you cannot directly connect because you don't have an email to send them, or you need to start calling one by one. And these are actually stories that we heard from the companies working with us, where they had to start calling employee by employee to let them know, hey, you know what, tomorrow we're going to have the plant closed, shut down, you cannot come to work. And then an hour later, hearing the news that they need to operate, calling them again. So this creates a lot of uncertainty with the employees. And then it's also difficult to understand, okay, what should we be doing? And many people are missing their shifts, what's happening. So I think it's very important to have that basis, that framework that will allow you to connect everyone, to give clear guidance. There are also very interesting research in the US where we heard that employees trust more their employers than the government on the directions they need to get. So it's extremely important that there are the employers play this role of connecting with their employees and give them that guidance that they need. For resilience, I think there are different things that play a role. In general, I will think about the employer value proposition, how they put that together to build a resilient workforce. And the value proposition from the employer should have topics related to growth, how you're developing your workforce, how you make sure they have fun at work, how you recognize them, how you reward them. But it's also very important to give them stability. And I think that was the most important thing during COVID, giving them stability and making sure that they know what's going on, they know what they need to do and how they need to do it. And having a way of finding that out directly from their managers, ideally on a digital way where they live. I mean, everyone today is spending their time on their smartphones. It's one of the most efficient ways we've seen. And we noticed how different reacted organizations that were working with us before the pandemic started, where they already had this baseline, and organizations that we onboarded after the pandemic started because they realized they need to have a solution in place to be able to connect and manage and run the operations with our frontline, from stories that they told us. And it was really night and day. So we see that this is really a direction that companies are going in order to build a resilient workforce and make sure that they can navigate through the pandemic efficiently.
And I think about those logistical challenges of just trying to have that communication with, like you said, 80% of workers who are on the front lines, and many who are seen as essential workers, right? That they need to be there during a pandemic. And so there's concerns though about safety and health that, if you're working in a factory or a meat processing plant, there's always concerns about safety and health, but not because of a pandemic. And so now you're having heightened levels of concern and trying to reassure people. And the point that you made about workers in the US trusting their employers more than the government in terms of steps to be taken and how to follow things, that is absolutely true. It's unfortunate, but true. And so that means that leaders have to step up to the plate and provide transparent information. They need to maintain trust with their people, and probably over communicate to make sure that everyone is getting to the same page, and people feel supported as they're going through these unprecedented times. And that's not easy work for a leader to do, because it is disruption. It is change. I know organizations that I've been working with, and I'm a professor, so even at my home university, just seeing the massive amount of disruption that's come from campuses shutting down and moving to online instruction, it changed everything, and overnight almost, we had to pivot, and that's a big load for leaders to carry. So part of this whole idea of creating cultures and environments of resilience with our workers, particularly for frontline workers, it also comes back to what is leadership doing to create those opportunities. And maybe you can share if there's examples that you've done with your own organization, or maybe just in supporting other organizations through your platform. What have you seen to be successful steps for leaders within organizations, complex organizations, trying to help create this resilience kind of environment?
Yeah, and I can share, I mean, something that applies to my organization and also the companies I work with. And I think you touched on that, is really over communicating and making sure that everyone has access to the information and clarity on what's going on. It's very different for my organization because we are all desktop workers. We all have access to laptops. So we can all work remotely. It's different. And we can connect. I mean, the team started to have daily stand-ups, so virtual daily stand-ups, of course, to connect via Zoom. That's the software we use, and make sure that they could have these daily touch points to know what's going on. And then once a week, we will have a meeting with our CEO to share the stories of the week, to make sure that people didn't lose that connection and knew what was happening in the organization, especially in a company like us, where I always say that a week at Beekeeper feels like a month at any other organization because we are such a fast-growing company. So it was very important to have these activities. We also created like a coffee time for people to connect and make sure they stay in touch. This is completely different when you think of a frontline organization where most of these jobs, people cannot work remotely. They need to go to work, but suddenly there are new regulations or new procedures they need to follow. And it's extremely important to over-communicate them, to tell them, okay, now the capacity at the plant floor is gonna be, instead of 1,000 people, we're gonna need to reduce to 600. And how can we now try to deliver the same output with less people? Or a funny thing that we heard from, or funny, interesting, or funny, but they wanted to remove the bulletin boards in the factories because that was a place where people were congregating. And they thought this could be a place where actually people can spread the virus. So moving them to digital communication to make sure that everyone can get access to the information at any point in time, no matter if they were in the plant or not on that day, but make sure that they don't lose that and they know exactly what are the new health and safety procedures. Because that was also one of the most important things, and I think also ties back to resilience, where the employer is ensuring the health and safety of their employees, and employees want to make sure that they're being taken care of. And by giving that guidance and making sure that the procedures are getting adjusted accordingly to this pandemic, that was something key that we saw from the organizations we collaborate with.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And I've seen similar things here in the U.S. And I've heard many stories and experiences of leaders and organizations where it hasn't gone so well, where the communication wasn't clear, where people didn't feel safe, where leaders weren't able to pivot themselves in terms of what their focus was on. And it seems like the common thread in a lot of those stories and experiences has been the ability for leaders to show genuine empathy towards their people. In times of resilience, if you need to reassure people, help them feel safe, help them feel supported, help them respond to not just workplace turmoil or challenges, but also things in their personal life. Maybe they're caring for an elderly parent who is immunocompromised, or they have small children who can't go to school now and they're trying to juggle childcare. These are challenges real challenges that people are facing that will feed into their experience in the workplace. And some leaders just have a better capacity towards empathy than others. And it seems like those leaders who have been able to show real, genuine empathy have been able to create more supportive, resilient types of environments where people can like take time to sit in their grief, in their struggles, in their pain, but then find a way to move on and use the challenges as a stepping stone, so to speak. And I guess ultimately it comes down to that, some humility on the part of the leader, some empathy on the part of the leader. And I wonder how that fits with your experience.
I completely agree. And I mean, some interesting stories. We work a lot also with the hospitality sector and with the food services. A lot of restaurant chains work with us, where at the beginning these were, and still many of them were hit really, really hard. I mean, many hotels had to shut down and furlough employees. For restaurants, it really depended. Some of them saw a spike on activity because of the food delivery. So actually they had the opportunity to grow their businesses. Others had also to shut down. And there, what we saw, the difference in the leaders, how they reacted to their employees, their furloughed employees, and also the people they had to lay off, and how they also continue communicating with them to make sure that they had everything they needed, that they stay in contact in case business started to pick up again and they could come back to work. So the empathy of the leader, I think it's something also very important for building resilience. And we saw how that played differently depending on the type of leader that each organization has. But what was really nice, what we saw in many cases, is that the leadership team were over communicating and taking care of everyone, not only the people that stay, but also the furloughed employees, so they could then know that when they could come back to work and make sure that that they were incentivized to come back when things were returning back to normal, which was the case. Now with the second wave, we need to see how that plays, but really supporting their employees, also with the ones that they had to lay off, providing them with the forms digitally, also in this case through Beekeeper, so they could apply for a certain support from the government and so on. So really taking care of everyone, because I think, as I mentioned before, and this is your space, but I mean, human capital is the most precious that an organization has, and really taking care of the people that make your organization work is extremely important. And we saw a lot of empathy during this crisis. I think it brought people together against the common enemy, which in this case is this virus.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Daniel, it has been a real pleasure talking with you today. We're about out of time, but before we close, I just wanted to give you a chance to give the final word and also share with listeners how they might get connected with you, find out more about Beekeeper, and anything else you would like to share as we wrap things up today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan. So our contact is beekeeper.io. So you can find us online at beekeeper.io, or you can give us a call at 844-423-3533. If you are looking for a way of driving more business agility because you have a large number of employees that don't have access to a corporate email address or don't work behind a computer, we can help you. We can really walk you through the digitization of your organization and making sure that you can digitize a lot of your processes and bring operational efficiency to your organization so they can better collaborate and really make sure that your people become your competitive advantage by providing them with all the tools and information they need through Beekeeper. And at the end, digitally enabling them to be more successful.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Daniel. It's really been a pleasure. And I wish you and your organization the best as you continue on, and as you said, as you continue to grow and scale and support businesses. It's really important work that you're doing, and I hope you personally and everyone within your organization and within your country are able to stay safe and healthy, and hopefully globally we can kind of come back together, during this second wave. And really in the US, we're kind of in our third wave at the moment. That we can do this as we are committed to each other and protecting the most vulnerable among us. And I truly believe we can beat this virus, and we can come out stronger for it. So thank you. And for everyone listening, again, I appreciate you joining us today. I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.
We are excited about the launch of HCI's new magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine designed to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We will be publishing issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Check out the first issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.